Good morning, and welcome back to Who Am I? What is Who Am I? That's a good question, especially if you're brand new to the show. What is Who Am I? Well, in a way, it's kind of my personal journal. It's my thoughts, it's my musings and ramblings. I'm always talking about the same subject. I'm obsessed with the subject, you might say. The subject is source energy. What people believe about the reality with a capital R around them. What they think is happening, what they think the rules are. Well, this little show is Who Am I? This is my perspective on what I think we are. I think it'll be helpful. I think if others listen to it, they'll get something out of it. But it's just mine. It's just my perspective, and people can allow it or disallow it. It really doesn't matter to me. I realized yesterday what a journaling exercise this really is and what it's going to be, especially since every day I kind of mention, what's going on in my life and what we're doing. What happened yesterday, actually, it happened Monday. It got really bad Tuesday, and Wednesday was ridiculous. My husband hurt his back, and he's been laying on the floor, sleeping on the floor, walking around. He can't sit, so he does everything else. He went to the chiropractor yesterday. We don't really know exactly what to do with him. I know a lot of things about the universe, but exactly how to apply them in a physical moment, I know that we create our own reality, and I know that the key to all physicality lies up here, and I'm tapping my skull. In the sense that, or maybe it's better, it would be more accurate to tap my solar plexus right in here. Somehow it's right here. But he's been suffering quite a bit, and what else happened yesterday? Did anything else happen? It doesn't matter. What I realized was that this whole Who Am I project is going to be a long-range, long-term journaling exercise as it expresses who I am every day for the next, I don't know how many years. I've been doing it for over a year, but I didn't start posting to YouTube until 1st of January. Before that, it was... and then I took a break when we went to New Zealand. There's like a month off. And then there's about 20 episodes that I recorded somewhere in there where I was kind of a little bit discouraged. And in my discouragement, my shows were flat. I recorded them and posted them, but I put them unlisted so you can't see about 20 of my shows. And you don't really want to. Those are kind of boring. But still, they sit there as an archive. And the ones I made before I started posting, they're all listed in my file on my computer. And so there they stand as an archive too. A journal, if you will. And maybe that's part of what I'm doing. But I claim that the reason I do this is because there's part of me that really wants us as a people to change. Well, we are changing. But I want it to change to something better, not just change to something equally dark, just different shape. I don't want that. I want our world to shift in a vibrationally kind, easy, flowing, beautiful, blessed way. What do I want? I want humanity off of fossil fuel. I know that it is largely the source of the artificial scarcity, especially with a species as clever as we are. There is zero reason why we should be having a hard time on planet Earth. You know? Instead, something different's happening. Now, I don't know if it's an expression of some sort of dark conspiracy to keep us, or whether it's a natural tendency that we have. Actually, I have my thoughts. I think that one of the biggest problems that we've got going on is that we're genetically modified and nobody is training us about this. And the reason that you have to be trained if you're genetically modified, if you developed over a long period of time, then you could almost say that the stones around you would echo all of the things that you know all the time, right down to the ground, because you just incrementally developed with the whole thing, and your mind should know that. There's something about that should carry. There should be monuments. There should be, if we really have been this way, if we've developed this way incrementally from an ape, from a way less, from an animal species to what we are now, if we did that incrementally over long periods of time, you'd think we'd know that. But instead, there's all these creation stories, and we, brush it away and just claim, oh, that's just an analogy. That's just a metaphor. That's just a fairy tale or whatever. But you know what? All these creation stories, I'm starting to think that there is actually something to them. Now, if you're a fan of the show, I always bring up the notion that we're genetically modified. I think we are. We may not be, but I think we are. And one of the reasons I think we are is because our behavior explains that. I mean, that would explain our behavior. We don't seem to fit in. We don't know who we are. We don't know how to operate. There's no user's manual laying around. I need to go get that. I still have that domain, but I need to go make sure that it doesn't expire. I was going to write a book called that in honor of my second husband who died. But we had a thing. We had a thing about the user's manual. It doesn't matter. I've now told the whole world it no longer can be used as a way for him to identify himself from the other side. The user's manual, he says. Oh, I know it's you. Can't happen. All right. So who am I and what's the point of this whole thing? I talk about, do I need to talk more about genetic modification? I was thinking about, opening up the spiel. I think we're genetically modified because our behavior explains it. Our behavior explains it on the one hand, the fact that we don't know ourselves, although there's, we have a very geologically volatile planet. And it keeps, in essence, bombing us back to the Stone Age. That's potentially one of when the earlier civilization wiped out, perhaps it was so... I'm thinking that the things that we have created so much garbage, so many artificial things, we've churned out so much that it's very likely that after the next geological cataclysm, which is undoubtedly coming down the pike at some point, we live on a very volatile planet. Or at least I understand that we do. Now, even so, I'm hoping for not too rough a ride. I'm sitting in geologically a place where the biggest dangers in my neighborhood is fire. because not much else rages particularly strong. Our storms, we get storms, they rage through, and they knock down a few trees, but they aren't, they aren't the kind of barnstormers that you get in the Midwest, where the whole, at the drop of a hat, the whole neighborhood can go. And you've got to be ready for that. You've got to be spiritually ready be flexible, be ready for volatility around you in the material, because it happens. It just does. And don't let it rock you too hard. Don't be so identified with the sticks and stones around you that when they shift and swirl, you are left, you don't know who you are, The question, who am I, is a really good one. If you think you are, if you don't think about it, then I promise you a lot of your identity is bound up in the material world around you. You've got it mixed. And while it's true that we do, the strands that are attached to the physicality around you, they are the strands of your identity. Very interesting. They're giving you good information, but everything around you is both not you and absolutely you. By the way, do you know how I do this show? If anybody's interested, and at some point, I'm sure somewhere back there I have explained, where this came from and how I do this. This is stream of consciousness. This is me developing my own neuro pathways within my own brain. Taking the points of fact that I believe are primary assumptions and things that I can count on up there at the top of the order of my iOS. And then trying to get it into alignment with the two selves that I am, micro and macro. And then address the physical world, pay attention to how you feel, because when you hit a negative emotion, it only means, it doesn't necessarily mean that in some small way what you're looking at isn't true here on the ground in a very specific way. Because that, when you get a feeling, it's a valid thing. Your negative emotion is a valid thing. It just means that right in this moment, what you're looking at is significantly less interesting to your inner being. Your inner being is looking at things. Your inner being is interested in things. Your inner being loves certain things. And your inner being is right there with you all the time. Now, when you go into a negative emotion, it mostly means that you have gone somewhere without your inner being. Your micro is without your macro. Just know that. You've gone into a place where God isn't. In your mind, you've just done it. Since the whole universe is like mental anyway, it is. Or the physical that it is, you are navigating with your mental, even though you may not realize it. You think you're ambulating through, trundling through in your physical body, but in actual fact, you are flying through the universes at the helm of a mighty starship that can take you anywhere forever and ever and ever. You just have to understand what part of you to identify with, and what part of you to recognize as that which you are navigating through, which is also you. And it's all a big mirror. It's a big mirror that is mirroring your transmission so that you can know, so that you can see what you're transmitting to the rest of the universe, so that you can know what's coming back at you. What you put out is what you get back. And don't think of it physically necessarily like, oh my gosh, how many orphans have I adopted today? How many homeless people have I fed? Now, that's a valid question, perhaps, to open our hearts in some way. Collectively, we need to open our hearts to all of each other. Now, individually, you can blame, whoever for being so selfish over there. But collectively, we need to do this. Collectively, we need to understand that we are one being on this planet, and if we would take care of that, and we easily can, we produce enough extra. As a matter of fact, I've seen videos like where the orange juice industry destroys mountains of oranges in order to, in order to preserve the price of oranges, so that orange farmers don't, their industry doesn't collapse, or, whatever the nonsense. That's such heinous nonsense. There's got to be a way to flow this whole thing. And my show is never going to be about, I'm going to lay out a plan. This is a plan for what people should do. Each and every person has to call that shot for themselves specifically. When you get all the way down to the brass tacks, the nuts and bolts, all the way down to the rubber hits the road, each individual has to call their own way. There isn't any other way that Source can accurately organize each to his own place on the grid. We are all in this together. And while you are personally, individually, 100% responsible for what you get in this world, based on what you are putting out. The putting out that we're talking about, don't translate that into action just yet while we're imagining it. The put out we're really talking about is a mental thing, and it's an emotional thing, and it's a transmission-oriented thing. It's a state of being question that we're talking about. What are you emanating from approximately the location of your solar plexus? But it's not just that, because your whole entire self you're emanating a signal, and a lot of it can be read from through equipment that you could buy at Lowe's. Some of it will take a trickier store. You might have to go to what's that one? The one they used to have the magazines for on the airplanes. It doesn't matter. Let me make sure I do not lose my train of thought by going down some sort of eddy. I test myself when I do this, and I get better and better at holding to the main flow. But I've sort of lost it here, so let me backtrack. Actually, I'm going to pause the machinery for just a second. Well, I know in general we've been talking about, who am I? And what do I know about myself? Now, I'm over the course of time, I will journal a lot of my specific self into this, because, what other example do I have to offer? Now, my lifestyle is not anything like Esther's lifestyle. And there's a lot of her followers who follow her because they want to live like her. They want to have at their fingertips all of this materiality that they are the ones who it's in their hands, in their control. But I wanted a better word than that. I wanted something that said it more fully. She's the one who gets to say she's the orchestrator or the dictator of, she gets to dictate what she gets to organize the stuff. She gets to move around the stuff, and it's her stuff. She owns the stuff, okay? I'm just trying to come up with a different word for what that means when you own the stuff. I have a different situation. I'm quite comfortable. We are quite comfortable. I'm even able to help loved ones make their higher dreams come true, because we're all trying to get to a better place. I'd like to be richer. They'd like to be richer. I would like to help us all be richer. And I sort of think of the whole family organization as being one thing. Oh, I am one with all of us. And one side of the family is already doing very, very well. And we've done well, but we've retired now. And I would still like to I'd like to be able to dictate more. I'd like to be able to just wave my hand and say, you know what, I would like that over there to be better. And then just make it better. Just make it so. Sort of a la Picard. Make it so, number one. I digress. We're in a comfortable position. I'm quite comfortable. Security, at least. I have absolute security. I'm not in the slightest bit worried about my financial future. Here, pretty soon, our Social Security kicks in, and Bob worked long enough for enough money that we're going to be comfortable, and we own the house. But do I have millions? Absolutely not. Would I like millions? Yes, I absolutely would. So, we're playing this game too, trying to play the mathematics and the rules of the physical universe / spiritual universe, which is the same thing. It's just one thing. And the spiritual stuff is just the physical that we didn't understand, and vice versa. Somehow it's vice versa. Because it is all one thing. And the way I've delineated it in my own head, and I find it helpful, and so I come forth and do this show trying to explain it to others so that they understand who we are and how this works and how we need to, ultimately, we'll be getting it together. Now, what anybody does at any given time, I have no control of. That's what I have come to understand this. I think it's one of the reasons why I had children. To really get this lesson that we are autonomous. And I know that you can't force everybody. You actually, the only thing that you can do, you can't force people to be anything other than what they are. If they want to be late, they're going to be late. If they want to... Actually, I don't want to get into specifics. Just know that children have... you know what? And it's not fair. Part of it is because of what I was as a parent. I have a very hard time telling anyone what to do. Even my children, I have always had a very, very, very hard time telling them what to do. Do this. I've always been kind of hedgy about my instruction to them because I really don't know what they should do. I have been all my life trying to very intentionally do what I do and hoping, kind of like waving at them. Can you see this? I'm role modeling. Do you understand what I'm doing? I'm role modeling. I'm not going to tell you what to do. You have got to figure that out for yourself. Now, my children are delightful. They are delightful. They're wonderful. Both of them are college degree graduates, master's degrees. One from an international Scotland university. I'm so proud of both of them. The other one, a speech language pathologist. I absolutely adore my children. They are so clever, beautiful, wise, and we all have a future in front of us so blind we are going to have to wear shades. No, I'm sorry. So blind. There's a Freudian slip. So bright it's going to make us blind if we don't wear shades. Yeah, our future's so bright, we got to wear shades. That's sort of paraphrasing, but you get the gist. You get the gist. I have just gotten onto this recognition of, yes, I am 100% responsible for what I get in my life relative to what I care about. But the only thing I have control over, ultimate control over, is my own state of being. Whether I am okay. I have the things I want, but whether I get them or whether I do not, I'm okay. Because I am starting to get the flow of this universe. And I'm telling us right now, everything around you is designed and supposed to be changing. It's mixing up really fast these days. Have you noticed? Goods and services and ideas are just flying around the realosphere, the consciosphere, the whatever. They're just swirling around. And actually, literally, that's what they are doing. Everything is spinning. And all of the motion that you are witnessing everywhere is spin. You're spinning. The things around you are spinning. They're spinning at different rates. Actually, if you meditate on that one for a while, that one you'll start scratching your head going, OMG, that's exactly what is happening. Now, you might get disoriented if you pondered that too deeply, especially without a grounding in deeper meaning than that. Because there's a lot of things going on. There's two sides of a great coin that you could imagine. And on one side of the coin, the space looks empty. And we all look alone. But when you flip to the other side of the coin, everybody's over there and it's really crowded. And you can't get away from that spot. That's the non-physical side. And when you reemerge into non-physical, you're over there. And as a matter of fact, your consciousness is actually capable of hitting that frequency here while you're still alive. You can get kind of to a realization. Now, I've never been over that, but you get a sense. There's this space, this conscious space and consciousness. I call it the room. I've been talking about it for the last, 6, I don't know how many years. It's hard for me to quantify that. My daughter will testify, but I don't know if she has any sense of how many years ago I started calling it the room, and we started talking about it and recognizing it as a concept. It's like there's this room in consciousness, and you could think of it as this is where all the cool people are. They are. Past, present, all the cool people are in the room. Now, sometimes cool people drop out of the room. If you're past and non-physical and you're cool, well, then you're always in the room anyway. You're cool and you're in the room. If you're physical, the analogous equivalent of being in the room is being in a particular state of being where you have joined humanity, mankind, that good humor, that knowing our history, that recognition of what we care about kind of a place. All the cool people are in the room, and you don't have to consciously, I'm not saying that the club involves always, if you are in that good humor, if you are in what Esther would call an alignment, you're in the room. And all the cool people are in the room most of the time. That's what makes them cool. They are mostly in alignment. Now, even the cool people sometimes get spit out the room. If you take a dark thought, boop, out you go. And then the idea is I want to get back in the room because that's where all the cool people are. All of the ones that came before that know what matter. So that's all part of the equation. You kind of set it off over to the side. It is part of the equation. What are we really looking at? What is this world? What is this universe? What am I a part of? The way I like to think of it is form and formless. That's another way of saying the two sides of the coin, form and formless. And who am I? What am I identifying with? Where am I putting my plug in? Because I think our I am is an identity plug that plugs us in somewhere. Literally plugs us in somewhere. And where are you plugging your plug in? Are you plugging it into the form, or are you plugging it into the formless? I think that actually we're formless. And we are playing with the form. And one of the ways we play with the form is we unconsciously identify with the form around us, and then it things that it has a way of echoing our every transmission. The universe is a really, really, really super duper cool bit of machinery that our consciousness is our starship to drive through forever and ever and ever. I don't know why I know these things. I just start flying around in my consciousness early in the morning after having done it for a long time. And these things come to me and they strike me as true. It feels correct to me. Our beliefs are like clothing. Did you know that? That you can put them on and you can take them off. And our consciousness is like a computer, like a iOS. I don't even know if that makes sense. I'm not a computer person. But it has an internal operating system, and you have primary assumptions, and you have object of the exercise, and you have all these mathematical... Your mind is very, very capable of operating on a purely, perfectly mathematical, logical way. You just gotta line it. You gotta line your two selves up correctly to who you actually are in real materiality, and don't take yourself personally. There's another way to look at these two coins, the two sides of the same coin. It's deeply personal, and yet not effing personal at all. It's both. And you're sitting right at the center of the paradox of that. You're sitting right at the center of, so the form and formless one, let's go back to that one, the form and formless. The form, as the rule says, is always changing. And the reason it is because the form is determined by these virtual particles that wink in and out. When they glump together, then when they wink in and out, they mostly wink back in, and so they appear to be solid. But everything around you is winking completely out and then completely back in all the time. And there are errors in it. It never winks out completely back in exactly the way that it winked out. Never does, because of attention and focus. That's what's holding it in certain places as opposed to other places. So, who you actually are is the focuser, the attentioner, the pointer, as Esther would say. It's quit trying to be quit trying to be your engine, getting under the hood and trying to pull the pistons and do all the mechanics of it all, because that's not really your job. You're higher up than that. You're not a human doer. You are a human doing. You're a human being. You're not a human doer, you're a human beer, but that didn't actually land right. Are you a human beer? That's not the expression. Human being, that's the expression. Your action is not what makes you so cool. And the thing is we invent things that'll do the action part of it. The automatons, the automation and the AI and stuff. All that stuff is gonna do the actioning part. What do we bring to the table? Well, what we bring to the table is this magnificent dual being that we can consciously understand what it is and get into concert with and use her guidance to help us as human beings frickin' interrelate with one another and cooperatively co-combine across all the spaces. And how do you do that? You don't dictate to anybody else what they do. You just help them understand who we are. And then hope that will, sort of naturally start to calm and soothe the waters. Don't be so quick to jump down your neighbor's throat because of that idiotic thing that he absolutely did do. Where I'm not going to argue with you about any of that. If you come to me with a dark story of woe, I'm not going to argue with you. You're not wrong. It's just that there's a bigger frame that we can look at this in, and it's more helpful, and it's more productive, and it's more coherent. It helps us understand. It's a frame that helps us understand who we are in a greater context, because we are in a greater context. Imagine yourself as being embedded in a vast 3D movie that has been going on for a while. And you can decide when the movie started. The movie started when the Big Bang banged. When the Big banged. Actually, when the incrementally small exploded or expanded into the universe that we see today in a Planck instantaneous, in a Planck time moment, our universe exploded into mostly the size that we've got, although it is still like incrementally expanding. At some point it will likely settle, and the expanding sensation that you still appear to be able to measure is more the toroidal flow of the matter churning through the torus, because we're a black hole. The universe is a black hole, which means at some point there's a vortex at the center of it, spinning it. It's a vortex of, and so there's a flow like through your blender. There's going to be that, and depending on where you're sitting, things look like they're moving away from you. You imagine that it's expanding, but it's not really. It's churning. I don't know exactly whether we are still expanding somewhat. We probably are expanding somewhat still from that initial Big Bang that was caused when our universe, as a Planck or a proton from another universe, was flung away, a universe from a higher density. A smaller universe is probably, I don't know. I don't know. I don't know whether it's smaller or larger, or I don't know where. Denser for sure, but where would that put it? I'd have to think about that. Is the denser one the smaller one? Probably. It's probably more compact. so interesting. It's possible that every proton that existeth upon the universe is actually a universe all unto itself. And that's how many universes there are in the multiverse. I don't know. I'm not sure it matters. I know that there's enough that every being out there consciously flying their consciousness through the universe is capable of living whatever existence the universe is big enough to accommodate whatever. I see it kind of like, you know, those novels where you come to a certain page and then you have a choice. Either this happens or that happens, and depending on which one happens, it has you either picking up a different book, you know, with this is what happens after that, or maybe opening a different page, you know, jump to this page or jump to that page, depending on which choice you, and you know, that kind of thing. Or video games are like that too, where, you know, you're walking along and you make a choice, and if you make this choice, then this pops up, or if you make that choice, then that happens, and this path opens up, or whatever. It's like that. And the whole universe is so capable of handling any contingency, anything you choose. I can be 100% responsible for my own reality, and yet at the same time, we are all sharing a reality. So it's all very mysterious and wonderful and cool, and we should use this information to solve our problems. And we do have problems. We've got lots of problems. We've got poverty, we've got homelessness, we've got cruelty in prisons, we've got a what's the word? Military-industrial complex that's, you know, just not exactly out of control, but the fact that it's so big is out of control. It means that we don't understand who we are, and that we don't understand that we actually don't need to get better and better at killing one another. On the other hand, there is another thing that it's expressing that is absolutely also true, and we don't like to believe this part of it. We do make a big deal out of the death process. And Abraham advises us that, you know, there really isn't that big a deal going on here. You know, this isn't just theater that you're creating yourself. And you've been doing it, you like the drama. That's why you're doing it. But you're creating every bit of it yourself. You know, you think it's happening to you, but it's not happening to you. You are creating it. And it's not a big deal. When you croak, you actually don't go anywhere. You're still here. You're still part of the gang. We are all like a cast in a mighty, mighty play. In a mighty, mighty cinema major motion picture that's been going on since history began, at least. And probably before that. The movie's been going on, but nobody's been filming it until history. I'm air quoting the word history. When history came along, now humanity is filming this. We're recording it because we're trying to figure it out. And you know what? We've got enough information now. We absolutely have enough information. We can put it all together and go, you know what? This is what it is. This is who we are. We are this two-pronged being. We are both vibrational and conventional. Our vibrational self is indeed trying to inform our conventional self of at least what it cares about. And it operates from a kind of frequency that you would be well served to care about the same things that she cares about yourself, you know? Now, one of the reasons I think that all of these things that I'm saying are so is because I think that there is a point somehow that we all share a point that we all share, a literal common point, where I have that point and you have that point. It's a non-local sharing point. It's because I believe we all come out of an origin, and I use this term advisedly. I use it literally. I mean it literally. I literally mean it literally. We come out of the same original spin. My two beings, my vibrational self and my conventional self, have two points of attraction. They are two vortices of spin, one being slightly independent from the other one, but we're all anchored in the one. And that one is source. Our source spin. It's a vast spinning vortex of creation where, we're living, we're banging around, we're recognizing what would be better, what would be wiser, what would be more efficient, what would be, more fun, more connected, more effective, all of these things. We're gonna get there. We're gonna realize at some point that we will all do abso-fantastically better. I was trying to amalgamate as many hyperbolic positive expletives that I could. I don't know how well I did there, but we will all do so much better that even the billionaires will wonder why they were so greedy. If we organized better, we could all be playing with all of the stuff way more effectively. If you're for another day, Amelie. My name is not Amelie Starchild, but let's just say I'm your host, Amelie Starchild. I have a different name, but I don't really want to use it on the show because this is not an ego project. At some point, people are going to know who I am, but I'm not in a hurry for that to happen. For now, I'm just exploring my own consciousness, and I'm exploring the possibilities about what we can do to solve every single one of our problems. Now, I realize that you have to take all the things that I'm saying and apply them to everything from the broken pipes, on my street to the vast but collectively, I wish we understood better who we were. And I wish that we were more ambitious. We don't need to spend $1 trillion on 20th century infrastructure. We need to kind of stay in a holding pattern. Let's kind of keep it in stasis for a minute while we explore some 21st, 22nd century technology possibilities. We need to understand gravity. We need to get off the surface of the planet. We need to have... what would I do if I was queen of the world? What would I do? Well, I would probably direct quite a bit more of R&D money towards research in the physics department I would expand unified physics and open departments all over the place. I would try to, what would the easiest way? What would the most flowy way be? Because I'm not a big fan of lurchy moments in time. I don't like lurches. Lurches would be like, even COVID was a bit of a lurch, although it was way more gentle of a lurch than the world wars were. We are becoming more flexible in our ability to change, but we have a few places where we're pretty solid, we're pretty fixed, And it's places where our government is holding into place certain things in our economic structure, having to do with our financial, and actually, if you know me, you know that actually I'm going to boil it all the way back down to our energy supply. Our energy supply is mostly coming from fossil fuels. And the way we produce goods is also largely coming from fossil fuels, plastics and stuff. We can do better than this, actually. If you just know that there's an answer, first of all, just have faith. Know that there is an answer. K-N-O-W, there is an answer. Life wants to go forward. The answer is not that we all have to go back to an agrarian society, because way back then we weren't challenging the ecosphere. That is not the answer. We can go forward. We can go forward. We just have to understand reality. We have to understand the matrix. This divine matrix that we are embedded in, that we are deeply a part of. We can be consciously a part of it. And I'm not saying you can't have irreverent fun. As a matter of fact, I recommend loads and loads and loads of irreverent fun. Just to understand who we are. And actually our fun side of us is us being flexible, of us trying to expand in a gentler way. Our laughter gets us out of our inflexible old selves. When we can laugh at ourselves, that's the best way. Who are we? There isn't all that much serious going on here. Even from what I understand, even death is safe. And nobody goes anywhere. You don't go off somewhere and leave all of the fun here. You stay here. You're just in a physical body or not in a physical body. Everybody's here. Everyone is here. Everyone is in the same room. We're all in this together, and we're all right here, and nobody's alone. Even if you look around your physical body and you don't see anybody immediately around you, you couldn't possibly be less alone. It just depends on which side of the coin you are focused on. You focused, and what I think those things actually relate to are the scales, the scaling of this magnificent universe, this fractal, holistic, holographic patterns of integral wholeness, reflective. I think that's what it is. One is a big scale. You look at it and it looks empty. And then the other one, you turn back the other direction and all of the angels are dancing on the head of the same pin. And they're all there together in the same room. So, where does that leave us? Where do I get off saying that we can get off of fossil fuels? Well, rumor has it that for the last 100 years or so, there were devices that were being created by different people. They'd run to the patent office. I don't know how many we're talking about. In truth, I don't have any information from the patent office. They might say there's hundreds, or it might just be a handful, a dozen. I don't know. I have no sense of this really. But what I do know is if there is even one that has ever gone to the patent office, the fact that, and I'm sure there's more than one, because there's a number of examples of different things, other things besides devices that plug into source energy, or devices that are over unity devices that produce more energy than they take to run. How about the guy who was able to modify an existing internal combustion engine so that it would run on a mixture that was mostly water with a little bit of oil added to it. And then another guy who invented a completely new kind of engine that ran on water. We don't have to run on liquid nitrogen or any weird kind of thing that, people might be, they may want us to run stuff off liquid nitrogen so that they can sell us the liquid nitrogen. They probably don't want us to run everything on water, because how do you sell people water? Well, they sell us water all the time, but you can't charge nearly the same price as oil and liquid nitrogen and such. There's a whole energy department. Our whole department of energy is a problem, because it is designed to continue the trade in energy, the economics of energy, the labor of energy, the commodity of energy, how that works into the system, providing us with the energy, and the energy itself providing the system with this new. And you know what? That's a problem, because it's not designed to completely understand energy and then eradicate its. Actually, I think there's plenty of places that if I was queen of the world, remember, that was my if I was queen of the world, I would convert the Department of Energy into a Department of Energy, into a Department of Understanding Energy for humanity. And then let all of us go out and figure out what we want to do with that in the economic world. Do we want to bake pies? Do we want to run B&Bs? Do we want to run transportation outlets? Or do we want to be the ones down at the river renting inner tubes to float down our magnificent rivers through the gorges that might be in the neighborhood? Or maybe I'm up selling my pastries up where they're doing zip lines. Or I foresee humanity's future as being one of enormous fun. We just need to quit resisting everything. We come up with these wonderful ideas about automation and AI. If we thought of ourselves as one being, we'd be very excited about these things. Ooh, all the drudge work we get to, consign to the automatons. And yet our systems are such that there's people who depend on those drudge jobs, and they get all defensive about it, and they're in competition with the automatons. And it's like, no, people, what's the matter with us? What's the matter with us is we don't know who we are. We don't know who we are. And so I do the show. Who am I? Who am I? Who am I? And of course, as soon as I turn off this microphone, I have to go off and answer that question myself. And I can't always be in the abstract. I love this time because I get to think of it only in the abstract, and there's no resistance here whatsoever. I know that all is well. I know that, whatever, for these 2 hours, and then I have to go out in the world and apply it. It's like school. Applied physics is what it is. I think that our new understandings of energy are going to literally inject a vast new surge of energy into the body of mankind. And we're going to be able to move forward on a whole lot of things, but we really need to quit this. We need to understand what our negative self is and how the world is affected when we allow ourselves, let's see how to put this, when we allow our negative self to drive our starship. We create a negative energy field in See, now I made the mistake of saying the word field, and now I want to say the word field again, and I realize how redundant that sounds. And so I'm brought up short. we when you cross your own energy stream, because you may not realize that you have this source energy positive forward stream, there's a consequence to having this. When you cross it with negative thought forms, there's a shadow self that emerges. It's like a sun casting a shadow. It is like that, but the shadow emerges from the negative self. Now, I don't want to judge the negative self. We just need to understand these energies so that we can constructively use our negative self in a gentle, playful way as we take our inner being's, vibrational, purely accurate guidance to move forward in the world. All the people in the churches, they're not wrong. They're just they don't have all of the information. They're absolutely correct. There is a God. But the God is like, so many words I could say, and some of them are rather trite. God is love, yes. And God does know everything. But God is not separate from you. You are a participant. And you have access to the consciousness. If you would settle down and get into that loving, expansive, all-inclusive, non-resistant frequency, you would start to see the frame, the bigger frame. You'd be like, oh, okay, I get it. There's this room where we all are. Yeah. So who am I and what am I here for? Well, I think we're here to recognize this miraculous, wondrous, fabulous truth about ourselves and the nature of reality so that we can play with it. Instead of not knowing how it works and then misinterpreting how our machinery works and then suffering with it, which is what we've been doing. And I personally don't want to do that anymore. I would like to get a little faster to the place where we understand who we are and we're all playing with it more, because I enjoy the play. We went to New Zealand earlier this year. If you're a fan of the show, you know that. If you're a relative of mine, you also know that. But we had such a good time. We zip-lined and we did night kayaking up to this place at the top of a lake where the canyon walls came together, and you could see glowworms on the sides of the walls in the night, and the guide telling us stories, and the whole group paddling through the night. It was magical. It was so cool. And then we did a really cool zip line through the trees, and we visited Maori villages, and we sailed on through beautiful islands, and it was just so much fun. We ate, we were expecting the food to be better. And the food was wholesome and nutritious enough, I suppose, but there was just no cuisine about it. New Zealand, you need to up your culinary game just a little bit. But New Zealand, as far as a place to go and have fun, they understand. And then in Fiji, we did a bunch of snorkeling. We didn't do any diving. I need to do some diving, but it was just the conditions were not conducive. It was the wrong time of year to go to Fiji, and that would have been the place to scuba dive. Calm waters, warm waters too. Fiji is quite a bit north of New Zealand, which is quite a bit more south and a little more temperate down there. And so because of that, their landscape is different. It's not a Gilligan's Island kind of tropical, the way Fiji looked more classically tropical with cocoa palms and, whatever all the classic tropical hibiscus and everything. And while there was some tropical, it was different in New Zealand. It just had, it was just different. It was all beautiful, so wonderful. These are the things that we are going to continue to do. When we stop the business of war and fossil fuel energy, what will the people do? Well, I'll tell you what they're going to do. They're going to run B&Bs. They're going to run eateries. They're going to grow food. They're going to run theme parks. They're going to try to attract tourism to their little location. And the way they're going to do that is they're going to have to keep their little area of the woods beautiful. They're going to have something interesting to show. If they have industry of any sort, they're going to be demonstrating how beautiful and synergistic and win-win, what are my other words, in alignment with the rest of the biofield. And people are going to want to come see it. We're going to visit all of each other and start looking for the great ideas. Ooh, what are you doing over here? Oh, man, that's a great idea. I'm going to go home and do that. We're going to start doing this. We could do it now. But everybody's so involved in frickin' survival that people don't have do you know what the resource of humanity would be if we would start taking care of one another so that more of us could just sit around the pool and think about stuff in a gentle way? Now, I know there's a lot of male energy that would be out there wanting to, well, that's what football's for. That's what, ultimate cage fighting is for, to, drain some of that testosterone-based energy, so that we quit killing each other and quit destroying the ecosystem. We can be in a harmonious alignment with planet Eden. We can re-garden her. We really can, especially if our transportation systems were no longer on the surface of the planet. We're no longer consigned to having to be on the surface of the planet. Now, the surface of the planet we can save for things like more charming modes of transportation, like sleighs, horse-drawn sleighs, and buggies, and golf carts, and pony paths and such, walking paths, jogging paths, bike paths, because people love bicycles, and bicycles are very gentle unto the world. And you know what? A bicycle doesn't go, when a bicycle comes up to a deer, it doesn't run into it and kill it. It might stop and look at it and go, oh, hi, Bambi. Love you. Bye. See you. Or whatever. Can you see what our future could be? But we got to take care of each other, because those who are not taken care of are going to go out and, for instance, kill the last elephants and sell their ivory. Kill the last rhinoceroses and sell their horns to some impotent freaking Chinese billionaire, so that he can get his dick up. Which it isn't going to help him, but it will. If the placebo effect will be very strong. The momentum of all of that, the placebo effect, is going to be so strong it actually might work. So we got to stop this. We've got to. The reason you have the guy in Africa willing to poach the rhino or the elephant to begin with is because he wants to survive, and he wants a piece of the material goods flowing through the veins of what do I call it? It's the supply stream of humanity, The goat cheese and the iPads and the high tech footwear and the energy units so that you can achieve climate control, and all of the reasons that you want money. that you want to capitalize. Well, a whole lot of people are having to do desperate things to capitalize at a very basic level just to feed their children. Do you know the desperate things that people will do when they cannot feed their children? And the desperate things that desperate people will do when they are hooked on drugs and cannot feed their children. And one of the reasons they're hooked on drugs is because they live in a world so dark and dreary that they have to escape it and find their way back to more real spaces. I want to tell you that joy that they experience in their drug-addled state is more real than the darkness that they are forced to experience in their waking state. You just don't understand what this world really is. We're supposed to be here for the joy. Did you know that? And that's why the drug addict keeps going back to the drug, because they're like, no, I am here for the joy and I know it. This is a doorway in. I don't know anything other than that. Now, yes, it is causing physical problems. And actually, those physical problems that it causes are supposed to be getting us to pay attention to our alignment, to understand what's really causing the problems around us. The problems that are being caused around us is not us not understanding who we are and what alignment is and what love is and what eternity is and what the field is. The matrix, the divine matrix of which we are all inextricably a part. We are all in this together. We are dreaming this together. We are all dreaming this together. So, how do I think this is going to get us off fossil fuel? Well, I have not shifted the slide, have I? I've stayed on the same one. I call this slide, what do I call this one? Sunrise Pond Fog. There's a little frost there too. I'm going to start doing more of I have a whole series of ones that are icy and wilderness and quiet. And I really start feeling that way as fall moves into winter. Summer is moving into fall right now. We're still in summer. We're late August. We'll have couple more days more than 3 weeks left of technical summer. But by the time summer's gone, you can feel winter and the cold starting to. Anyway, I was going to. Where do I want to go? Let's do my links list really quick, just in case I direct anybody to this show and they're new to it. Here's my links list. This will be in the description of my YouTube video. Link to the Lost Century and How to Reclaim It. That is that documentary that's going to tell you about the history of over-unity devices. If you're not ready to fully accept all of the extraterrestrial stuff, fine. But I actually think that there is more extraterrestrial contact with Earth than we have been than we've been acknowledging, than we really know. And the fact that we're genetically modified sort of points to that. I mean, if we are genetically modified, then somebody from off-planet did it to us. Ergo, extraterrestrial. So, but that one is the importance of this first video, The Lost Century, is the over-unity devices. The very notion that you could have a way that we can make our energy go way farther than we're making it go. You know, we don't have to be as addicted to fossil fuels as we are, but those who have addicted us want us to stay addicted because they want our energy needs to grow. They want to keep selling us more and more and more of this. They don't want to sell us less and less and less of this and start laying off everyone in the industry. And they've got everyone in the industry on their side because the whole system is set up so that if that industry goes away, all those people fall through the cracks because we don't have a good national safety net. We don't. We have a whole political party that believes that a national safety net is actually a bad idea because it makes a whole bunch of people addicted to the government teat, as they might put it. I don't know whether they would put it that way, but it's not really, that's not the, we shouldn't look at it that way. We shouldn't look at it that way. We should know that even if we are all fed, there is a drive within us for more. Always more. Always more. That we're not going to be lackadaisical. And you know what? Even if some of us are, so what? The sloth out in the jungle is fulfilling a very important part of the eco field around him. We're all important here. Every one of us. If you're here, you are part of the elite club. You should be here. Welcome. Welcome to planet Earth. Find your way. Find your way. Well, how do I do that? My advice is, let's figure out who we are. And then let's operate our equipment appropriately. Let's understand the laws of the universe. Let's get through this list first so I can get off of this list. I put it on and then I digress and then I forget and then it stays up for the longest time. You really don't want to be watching my videos. Every once in a while I'll say, hey, I've changed the slide. You know, if you want to look at what I'm talking about now, I've put it up on the screen. But then now take your attention off because I'm not visually oriented, which is probably fine because my vision, I'm losing my vision, and I would like to not be losing my vision. I don't believe that it is absolutely inevitable that I lose my vision. I believe that there is some possible way that I could find to make my vision come back more clearly. I don't yet at this time know what that is. One of two things is going to happen. I am either going to get my vision back or I am going to discover some incredible advantage to a kind of sight that appears within me when I lose my fixation on my visual. And I'm going to thank, the universe for having taken my eyes away so that finally I can see. One of those two things is going to happen. I don't know which one, but whichever one happens, I'm going to be fine with. So what else do I have on my links list here? We have the Origin of Mass and Nature of Gravity. That's the YouTube video. It's a 37-minute YouTube video that explains in excruciating mathematical and physics talk detail the paper, The Origin of Mass and Nature of Gravity, which is what Nassim's team published. Oop, that's the full abstract. Last September. It's this paper right here. And it mathematically explains where matter comes from, how it comes across the This is how I put it. It seems an appropriate use of this language. When matter comes across the event horizon of the zero-point energy field, in other words, when it goes from being a not organized part of the Planck field to organizing into mass, how does it do that? How does it... Anyway, this explains it in... Oh, that does not do that. This explains it in excruciating detail. And then I also have all of these slides that I captured from that video. These are captured from the video of the explanation of where, everything's black holes all the way up and all the way down. Our universe is a black hole. Our planet is a black hole. Frankly, black holes are not exactly what we thought they were. They are, but every proton is a black hole, and if it, as such, Actually, I don't know if I think our planet's a black hole. I think that's what he says. I know protons are black holes, and there's black holes at the center of every galaxy, and our universe is a black hole. Anyway, they emit Hawking radiation. This is also the explanation of the Big Bang. This is where they were describing it in the video. And then there's screening mechanisms as all of this plethora of information is transferring across scales. It's holographic too. Have I said that today? I don't know. These are all from the... Go watch the video. All of this stuff is in there. Way more technical than I am. I don't know if I redid any of those. This one I actually captured from the paper, not from the video. This one is explaining the relationship between all of the Plancks in the Planck field of a single proton and all of the protons in all of the rest of the universe. Which is why I captured that one. I like that one. And then, oh, that's not from the... I'm not sure where I captured this from. It is from one of Nassim's talks. You can see his name down here in the bottom left corner. This one... Yeah, I did show this one. I like this one because it shows that as the Plancks organize and go from non-organization, zero-point energy field into organized matter, blinking into matter, they're spinning. Spin is fundamental. Spin is... And the fact that spin is fundamental explains the four fundamental forces: the strong force, the weak force, gravity, and electromagnetism. That's what they all are. They are coming from this fundamental spin. You don't have matter without this Planck field spinning. That's what it is. That's what the matrix is made of. Think of the Plancks as being pixels. Pixelization of space-time. And there's a picture of that. Anyway, so very, very cool. And so that means that what's holding a atom together is actually gravity. But you'd have to go through all of Nassim's stuff in order so that you understand how come it's gravity that's holding things together at the quantum level. It's the same gravity that's holding everything together at the cosmological level. It's just seen from different perspectives. I know what I have been saying is this zero-point energy field that everybody's been talking about, this matrix. It's a matrix, and we're all matrixed together, every point touching every point kind of thing going on. And you've heard a lot about it. It's made of Plancks. All of the space around you that looks like space isn't space at all. It's full of Plancks. They're just not organized the same. They're just roiling in this sort of roiling, formless energy field. Our consciousness is screening most of that out. As a matter of fact, the only thing that we are acknowledging as stuff is where the field spins into organization, and we call that matter. When the Plancks spin, we call it matter, and when they just roil, we call it space. And everything's there actually isn't really any space. Think of all the space as not space. And that's how not space there is. And all of the stuff that you think of as not space, as being stuff, is actually the space organizing into spin. Wow. It's sort of like seeing the reverse, like seeing the negative of a photograph. You're like, oh, isn't that interesting? That's what the universe is, and it's way more energetic than we've been giving credit for. There is an almost unlimited amount of energy everywhere. 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 Literally everywhere. Everywhere is the center of its own universe. So what are we going to do with that? What are we going to do with that? Well, as human beings, we need to rise up against those who would oppress us. But on the other hand, you got to understand that ultimately there is no us and them. And even those that would oppress us are us, you know. And I have to also, you know, that movie, The Lost Century and How to Reclaim It, where they talk about, you know, those who have kept this from us, who in the name of national security have swept it away. They're not entirely wrong. They're not entirely wrong. And it is up to us, for us to raise our consciousness and then demand this information back. But not from a place of conflict or confrontation, but rather from a, okay, I get it. I understand why you would think that that's a matter of national security. Because I can see our future and I can see our present, and there's gonna be a moment where there's gonna be some serious world meets world issues. You know, I'm positive that our future is going to be what I say that our future is going to be. I just don't see any way of avoiding it, given what the truth of the matrix is, given the truth of gravity and energy. So when you change humanity's gravity and energy paradigm, there's a whole lot of physical stuff in our physical world that changes. And there's a whole lot of people right now who are very attached to the way that they are sucking off the teat right now. And they're smack dab in the middle of something that is in the crosshairs of the change. You know? So it's either going to be a rough ride or it's going to be a less rough ride, but it's going to be a ride. Where we're going and where we are, two different places, and it's going to be interesting to see how the one navigates the other, because I don't think that where we're going is a question. I don't think it could be a question given the nature of reality. This is what gravity is, and so our understanding of this will pull us up off the surface of the planet. Now, all of our infrastructure right at the moment, all of our car companies and all of our physics understanding is back in the 20th century, so I don't know. I don't have an answer to any of that. Also, I know that there are millions, if not, there's millions of people across the planet who are vested. And there may be hundreds of millions, if not billions. I don't know what the number would be. It all depends on how you count the ripples outward, you know, from the epicenter of the fossil fuel industry. You know, how do you count what that economic activity and how many people are dependent upon, and their claim to any part of their claim to any right to walk into a grocery store and claim any of that food for themselves. To be able to squat in a house and say, this is mine, you can't throw me out of it. All of that takes capitalization. And so it's going to be a ride. On the one hand, there's going to be the collapse of certain industries But on the other hand, there's going to be a tremendous influx of literal energy, to replace the energy of all of the economic activity of what was going on over in the fossil fuel sector. As a replacement for that will be unlimited clean free energy everywhere. And now it's only limited by human beings' imaginations, and you can fly off into hitherto uninhabitable places. As long as you've got water, imagine the land of 10,000 lakes. Now all of a sudden you can live anywhere. You can build yourself. How? I'm not sure about materials. Now, I know that an understanding of source energy will eventually lead to being able to pull out of the matrix objects, like a 3D printer. How do you focus a frequency in a particular way and cause the matter to coalesce in a particular way using, calling forth the frequency of materials? I see so many things for our future. What I really ought to do is after these shows, I should click this off and just start riffing about ideas about novels settings for science fiction novels based in the future and what they would be like. what the criminal justice systems, such as they are, what they would look like. What you would be sentenced to for infractions, large and small, would be different sorts of rehabilitation courses, intensive rehabilitation courses you might be sentenced to if they were done in the right spirit, like indoctrination sort of things. But if they were done in the right spirit, it would be okay, Who am I seminars, where for a week you have these, you laugh and you cry and they beat you down and you meditate, and you one with the whole, and then they set you free back out into the open spaces. Go forth and choose your own way now. Only you can choose it, because only you are occupying that particular position on the grid. The grid, aka the matrix. Everyone has to call their own way, because only you are hearing purely the call of source. So, who am I? Good question. Where did I come from? I have this neocortex, which is sort of an overview mind. It has the ability to see a larger frame than my mammalian brain, which is just purely reacting off of things that please or displease me in my environment. Completely fair. Your mammalian brain is not wrong. However, your overview brain understands that there are bigger frames, and that there are bigger frames to understand that environmental response that your mammalian brain inspired. Your neocortex is sort of analogous to your source mind. Your neocortex is to your physical mind as your inner being is to your physical mind. You see, it's like an over, you know what I mean? It's and it's vibrational too, by the way. Your neocortex, the thoughts that it comes up with are vibrational. And when they resonate with what your inner being knows to be true about the universe, then you have a positive feeling. That's what positive emotion is. And when you feel negative emotion, it simply means that you have taken a meaner, smaller, more disempowered thought, something in that order. You've taken a thought that is meaner, smaller, disempowering, something like that, compared to what your inner being is thinking about the same thing at the same time. I'm looking at my lamp. My inner being sees the same lamp. My inner being sees the same family, the same life situation. The thing is my inner being doesn't just see me and my family. My inner being vibrational, is by extension resistance-free in coordinated contact with all the rest of the universe. It's reverberating with all the rest of the universe. It is in touch with my atomic structure, which we've already explained that the Planck field... Did I explain that today? I didn't. The Planck field of every proton in all of my atomic structure is reflecting all of the information of all of the rest of the protons in all of the universe. In other words, my inner being doesn't even have to go anywhere else to have all the information of all the universe right here where I am. And where I am, I can read my inner being's information in a really personal way as it pertains to me. It's like my giant. It's not just giant and inclusive of the whole universe. It's my piece of that. It's like your personal deity, And then you start recognizing, and this is the part I play in it. And it's so important. Why do we keep dissing ourselves? Why do we keep dissing each other? Why do we keep dissing this whole process like it's not a big deal? It is a big deal. We are very cool. We are very cool creatures. And we take it so much for granted how cool we are. And yet we don't, sometimes when we don't take it for granted, we get all something else. We get all human exceptionalist. In the same way the American exceptionalism. Yeah, Americans are very exceptional. But as human beings, we are not any more exceptional than anybody else. What's exceptional about our country is that we are a created nationality. We don't spring forth from blood and soil. We are a creed nation. What holds us together is an ideal. An ideal of freedom and equality and what are the other things that hold us together? Justice and liberty for all of us. And that is what makes us exceptional, not that American human beings are better than other. And as a matter of fact, our living up to or not living up to our ideals, we haven't always necessarily been the best at that, for sure. The way we treat our Native Americans is just absolutely terrible. We should be doing more of what the New Zealanders have done. They made, of course, they had an advantage over us in this case. They're a smaller nation for sure. And then their indigenous tribe, there's just one. It's the Maori. Now, there may be different family segments of the Maori, but there's just one indigenous tribe. And so it's not like they had to get all the Native Americans together to, here in America, our country is enormous. And there are so many Native American tribes. But in New Zealand, they've made treaties with them. And now all of the local places have Maori names, as well as whatever other names they had. Some of them only have Maori names, and some of them have two names. But the Maori spirit is, you can just feel it everywhere in the way they treat each other and in the way they treat their land, the way they treat nature, the way they treat, their connection, the way they see their place in the world is just beautiful and breathtaking. And it would be one of those things that as we travel around the world and we share each other's, culture and ideas, it's something that I feel that I've brought back from New Zealand. This, as a matter of fact, there was a Maori woman that we were listening to. We were watching a Maori show that we almost did not go see. Bob wanted us to go see some museum. And I had it envisioned as some sort of museum of the wars and European settlement of this country, plus some native stuff thrown in, and I don't know. I was translating it incorrectly, and it was a long walk to get to the museum. It was largely uphill, and it was a sunny day, and I was hot and complaining the whole time. And then we got there, and it was like, oh, this is a cool place. And then we almost didn't go to this show, but these two very handsome Maori guys were out in the calling everybody to, we're heading to the elevators and we're going to go up and see this, to do the show. And Bob and Maxwell and I were looking at each other like, should we do this? And so then we ran and got our tickets and we ran and saw the show. And the show had this woman, this Maori woman. I should have recorded. Now, they weren't allowing you to do any recording, like video recording or anything, but if I had had my phone on just to record her words in my purse so that I could hear these spiritual words that she was saying, talking about the matrix of life that connected all the world. And she just said it in a way. I've always loved the Maori. And when I heard her words, my heart just practically leaped out of my chest. And by the end of her speech, tears were streaming down my face. And I knew that it was almost to the point that I felt that this was why I had come to New Zealand. Certainly it was why we were inspired to see the show, because this was coming. And it was going to affect me like this, and my inner being knew it. And Bob knew, my inner being knew it. Oh, did I say his name again? I'm sorry. That is not his name. In any case, very, very moving, very moving. I would like to see a better alliance, a tighter alliance between the native tribes of this country and our government and our economy and all of our systems here in America. We would be a much cleaner, kinder, more bountiful country. But you know what? Someday, and I don't think it's going to be very long, because this information is big enough that once a few people start believing it and start working on it, and then know that what they have to do is open source the damn thing and save humanity. Do that instead of inventing this. Invent it and save humanity instead of invent it and make my own personal billions. You'll make plenty. You will make plenty if you invent the over unity device that gets thrown out onto the internet in such a way that even the powers of be cannot call it back, because it has iterated into the field so many times that they cannot find the source of that and erase it any longer. And then we all have it, and then we all know it. And then not only do we have that device, but we have the knowledge generally. As a group, we know together that this is possible and that the fossil fuel industry has been lying to us, has been artificially guiding our steps so that we would continue to need more and more and more oil. And our transportation devices specifically designed to burn this fuel. And then another thing that is criminal is that it is allowed to design planned obsolescence into anything that you produce. Now, you want to make a law to say you can't do that. But the reason you don't want to do that is because there's an off spirit there. And so the actual answer is not to make a law saying that you cannot plan obsolescence. You just have to make sure that people understand what that spirit is and understand what the appropriate spirit instead is. And how even those who run the factories, who create the stuff that they want to keep they just want to keep spitting out the same device, only slightly different over and over and over through all eternity. That's what their inclination is. But that shouldn't be what they do. As soon as everybody has a communication device that links us into the internet and links us into communications with one another in a very plain and direct way, that's not being manipulated, slowed down, or sped up for commercial reasons, because we don't need to do it for commercial reasons anymore, because commercial isn't what we're about anymore. Every one of us has enough to eat, and every one of us has shelter that's adequate and fine, and every one of us has access to all of the energy that they would need to create whatever you do have to have the money in there. Well, money is a currency. It's a flow of currency. And as such, it will still be there. But everyone's desperate need to scratch out a subsistent what am I saying? I also realize that I'm an hour and 46 minutes into this. And I've sat on this neocortex picture for the longest time. You really should not be watching. Let's go here just for a second. This is one of the ones I like to start on. I call her Golden Girl Moon. Moons, actually. There's lots of moons. They might just be all reflections of the same moon. They couldn't possibly be all different moons because I don't know how the gravitational forces would work. But it's an interesting picture. I think it's AI generated too. We should not fear AI, and we should not fear automation. We should lean into it. Know that AI is never going to be a threat as long as we stay in control of our own consciousnesses and man the helm of our own consciousnesses. Quit leaving it to everybody else to do all the thinking. Put your own self together. Add it all up, at least for yourself, from where you're standing. Add it all up. You are, well, what does that mean personally? You are all yourselves. Yes, it's true. A lot of times I say you are not your negative self. And in a way that's true, and in a way it's not true. In a way you are your negative self too, because you are all yourselves. All of yourselves added together equal the wholeness that is you. And that wholeness that is you recognizes where the negative plays, understands the place of the negative, but it isn't just your negative self, it's your whole self. Your whole self sees all things because it's vibrationally connected to your the Planck field of all the protons of all of the stuff around you. Your spirit is absolutely grounded in reality. It's not just off, playing harps in heaven. Like Abraham says, this is the leading edge. This rolling manifestation of physicality, that's where the interesting part is. That's where thoughts are turning to things. That's where emotions, where states of being matter. Literally matter. Here, if I talk much longer, I'm going to be past the hour and 50-minute mark, which means I am fair game to start my day. I have a cripple in the family who I left in the bed. So he must have, his back must have settled down enough. I know for a while he was sleeping on the floor downstairs. What are we going to do? What are we going to do? It's terrible to be encased in flesh. Flesh, did you know that, this is how I put it. To be made of meat. To be made of meat and bones. What an experience we are. What a life this is. Who am I? Who am I? And what are we all about? Well, I think that what we are all about on planet Earth right now is trying to find our way to sustainability. To a future that we can repeat, where everyone is taken care of, where we're fed and we're creating abundance rather than creating ever more scarcity. We are absolutely capable of doing that. I believe the reason we're not doing it is because we don't know who we are. And we are also artificially being kept dependent upon fossil fuels. All of our transportation systems now are all dependent on that. However, as evidenced by the ideas that took relatively the same transportation devices and ran them on mostly water, if we could go find that piece of technology that they stole, somebody from the government took it and it's somewhere. I don't think they burned it. I think it's in a safe somewhere. And when, it's like when we overthrew the Third Reich, and then we had access to all of their information. All of the secrets came out. There's a it's not a Reich that controls us. It's cartels. Cartels of economic activity, both legitimate and shadow, controlling all of they're controlling the political systems, and all of it, I think, is deeply affected, if not absolutely controlled, by the energy sector. Deeply affected, I don't know what words to use for this agglomeration of connected control that's going on right now. But we don't have to think about it in terms of like what is the Star Wars thing? It's the Alliance and versus the, what's the big guys? Who does Darth Vader work for? The Who? It's not the Federation. It's the, what is the name of that? The Emperor is the head of. What the hell is it? I'll have to think about that. Anyway, we don't have to do that. It doesn't have to be conflict and confrontation. You don't have to resist anything. You just have to, we just have to know who we are. And I think that's probably a pretty good place to leave it for the day. And so until tomorrow, when I hope you will come back and visit me again. And if you happen to have ears on this show, and I ever say anything that makes any sense to you, you don't have to, I mean, it'd be great if you'd spread the word and get other people to listen to me. They're going to have to dial into in a very specific way, because I'm not easy to find on, I think my channel might be, Who Am I in the Field? I think that's what my YouTube channel is called, Who Am I in the Field? I don't know if it helps to know what my real name is. I know it's there on my channel somewhere. I'm not really hiding who I am. I'm not ego identity forward. But if you hear anything, any idea that resonates with you, go out and apply it somewhere. In some way, add coherence to our equation out there in the matrix. Coherence begets coherence. Coherence inspires coherence. It's the old that which is like unto itself is drawn kind of thing. So do your best. Love each other. I love you. I'll see you back here tomorrow where we will do this again and again and again and again. And until then, may the source be with you.